Good afternoon and welcome to the April 7th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. We have the consent agenda with three sets of meetings and one approval on the agenda. We can take them all at once if somebody would like to make the motion to accept. Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Greer. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence. We have a number of pieces of correspondence that have come in. We can take them all at once as being received, or we can break any out that somebody wants to speak to. So, is there anybody that would like anything taken out? I would like to then take out item C for just a second, because I would just want to bounce this off of council and get your feelings on it. So let's take the A, B, D, and all the way through to F. Everything save C. I need a motion for that. Are you moving it? All right, let's do them one at a time then if we want to. Item A from the City of Victoria. I need a mover and a seconder to receive. Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Item B, City of Prince George, needed to be received. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Carried. Item C, just before we go into it, I would, all right, we'll do it properly. I need a mover and a seconder on the motion to receive. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Wilson. Just want to make a comment. They've asked us what they want to do is they want to sit down with all of yourselves included and all of the councillors from Nanaimo, from Lanceville, and they want to have a meeting and talk about everything, I guess. I'm open to suggestions on this. I'm not sold either way, so I'm wide open as to what is. Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Mayor Main. I just had a question. Instead of just receiving it, could we perhaps send a letter of support as well to this? And then we can open it up to, like, I'm in favor of it. You know, it's a good idea. But I think instead of just receiving it, I think give them at least affirmation that we'd be willing to meet with them.
If we receive, after we're finished the discussion,
yes.
My intent would be then to send them back a letter. Take another motion to send a letter to them.
Okay. Support. Yeah,
saying the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is all about the environment, I understand.
No, that's not it at all.
Well, it's partly.
I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah. So what are the other topics?
They haven't established an agenda for the meeting yet. They just want to know if we're in favor of getting everybody together and have conversations about, you know, the growth in the areas. Economic coordination. There's about 4 items on the agenda that they're on the points that they made. Plus everything else is open. Is my understanding, the Chair Brown is interest. He's willing to talk about just about anything. We just got to put it on the agenda.
Yeah. I just understood it was more to do with the environment.
No, I think there's a number of things. Although I would tell you that all the items there say were all provincial jurisdictional items.
Yeah, that's why if that was what it was all about, then I wouldn't be interested. But anyways,
yeah,
I'll listen to hear what you're saying.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to tell you that let you decide what you want to do as a council. If you want to get together, it'll be. I'm not sure how much can get done with that many people on it. It might be a little bit confusing, and especially when you're overweighted by the fact of Nanaimo's council being on there, with the size of it compared to the rest of us. But you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. It might be worthwhile. And if it's for a couple of hours, what have we got to lose would be my approach. Councillor Greer, go ahead.
Well, on second thought, I think we should just pass it. Because of that very reason, that there's just so many around the table, I can see where it'd be a couple of hours or 2 or 3 hours of a wasted time. I don't know how much we can learn from having so many people discuss so many items.
Okay.
Anyways, just my idea.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just my comments to that is it's not mandatory that you attend. It's a Zoom meeting type of thing. So it's not mandatory for every council member to attend. I think it's optional, Councillor Greer. So I think it's good to keep the lines of communication open with the RDN. And in that respect, I'm willing to at least attend. And if anybody doesn't want to attend, I'm sure that option is open to them.
Absolutely. There's nothing that says that this is not a mandatory meeting. I'm going to take Councillor Chandler and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through Your Worship to everyone. Just a comment. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Easter Bunny for dropping off this little egg here. That's really, really nice. Secondly, I think we all talked about quite a while ago, making sure that we got together with all these other municipalities and talked about a whole bunch of things. So realizing that, yes, we're kind of overweighted by the group from Nanaimo and that whole district, but I think it's really incumbent on us to make sure we get rid of or get together with these folks. And so I would love to see us make this meeting something that happens every 6 months or so. So,
okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't think I want one every 6 months, but I sure do think it's a good idea to keep the lines of communication open and have a chat, see what can come of it. You never know what could happen. Good things, perhaps.
Okay. Everybody finished with what they have to say? First off, we're voting on to receiving this letter. We'll receive it, then we'll go from there. All those in favor of receiving is carried. Now, would somebody like to make a motion that we advise the RDN that we would like to attend? Councillor Greer, second by Councillor Patterson. Discussion on this? We'll just let staff draft up a letter for us saying that we're prepared to attend this meeting and give us the dates and the formalized agenda. Would that be all right? Yes, you can.
If I may, Your Worship, if councillors think of other topics or agenda items, if they could just maybe send us an
Yes.
email in the next couple of days, we'll include that in the letter.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, recreation would be a good one. All right, so I'll call them vote on that motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thanks. I'm going to put letter from item D, letter from Chair Brown for the RDN, who's actually just saying he sent to the Minister of Health and Addictions, requesting that adequate facilities and complex care housing be built within the regional district of Nanaimo. It was something that all of the mayors in the chair decided to do so that we could get something started on this and hopefully move it forward. So I need a motion to receive. Moved by Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Any discussion? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to bring this out in the public forum, I'm still confused about what complex care housing is, but perhaps we can get a clarification from the RDN when we have a meeting with them.
There you go. All right, all those in favor, Councillor Fraz?
Yeah, thanks. I thought there was other comments there. Just want to say, I think this is a good opportunity for us to lobby the minister for things that we've continually been asking for proper treatment recovery programs we put in place. When I think about complex care, that's the way I see that is somewhere the recovery facilities and care in there. So if this is asking for our support as well for the Parksville city to endorse the letter going to them, if we can get it, do we have a copy of their letter? If we could send an endorsement perhaps to, like, it's something I would like to see supported at a municipal level as well, just because, like I say, this is something that I think a lot of us have been asking for. So here's our opportunity now to put our weight behind it. And I realized, yeah, sorry, when I said a copy letter, I meant, I was thinking more along the lines that something that we would send to them, but if we could draft one up, something I'd like to see done.
But as we did in the last one, let's receive this, and then you can make a motion about sending a letter at that point, if you don't mind. Councillor Chandler?
I'd like to make a motion to receive this document.
Okay, I think we've got that far, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, so we're just going to call the vote on receiving to start with. All those in favor of receiving? Carried, thank you. Now, a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion and that we send a letter of support along endorsing what the RDN is asking for a letter to the Minister of Health.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Letter from Mr. Jiggins at the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association. Oh, did I? Oh, you know what? I don't have an E in here, so no. Somebody. No, don't have it. Sorry. Just if somebody can give me a copy of it. Thank you. Okay, another letter. Chair Brown has been very busy writing letters these days, and he's asking us, because you have to have 100% acceptance on the growth strategies, any changes to the growth strategy. So they're asking us for change to the Nanaimo airport lands is what they're doing. They're in the process of working through that. I need somebody to move it to be received. Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Greer. Any discussion? All those in favor of receiving? Fair enough. Passed. Yes, we need a motion. Councillor Patterson, you're going to make a motion, I would assume. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Your Worship, that Council support Regional District of Nanaimo Regional Growth Strategy Amendment Bylaw number 1615.04, 2020.
Okay. I need a seconder. Councillor O'Brien. Discussion on this? I think it's pretty straightforward. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now I can go to F. It's from Mr. Jiggins, the chair of the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourist Association. It's for the online accommodation platform, municipal regional tax affordable housing plan. I need a mover and a seconder for point number 1 to be received to begin with. Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Chandler. All those in favor? It's carried. Number 2, that council endorses the recommendations as outlined in. Let me just back up and explain is that we asked Councillor Fraz, myself, and Councillor Wilson met with the PQB Tourist Association, and we asked them to provide us with what they wanted done with this money. When somebody pays for their room, they pay a percentage as a tax, almost like a sales tax, except it's a tax that goes back to the local areas. And all the hotels have been paying it for years and years. And that money comes back, and the local PQBTA uses that for advertising and promoting the Oceanside area. Recently, a few years back, what was found out was that all those people with the accommodation, online accommodations, okay, so I'm trying to think of the names of them, but
B&Bs.
yeah, B&Bs and all that, they weren't paying any tax. So what they did is they put that, the province put that in, And they said, all right, but that money that you're going to collect, which amounts to about $25,000 in the, for the city, for the Oceanside area, $25,000 a year. They wanted to know, they wanted a plan that would be how this money would be used, rather than just putting it into the advertising fund. That was kind of the condition that they gave on it. Actually, it was a pretty good idea. But a couple of meetings ago at the region wanted to turn the money over initially to the John Howard Society, so that they could set up a rent bank to loan money to people for that couldn't afford their rents. And Councillor Fraz and I and Mayor Wicks said, wait a minute, no. If it's going to be done, we think it should be done, because it's in Oceanside, it should be done in an Oceanside place. So we asked to have that put over to the SOS. And then we went back to the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourist Association and said, what do you guys want done with this money? Like, I mean, that's nice that the region's saying that they wanted to give it to this rent bank. What is it you'd like to do? So that's where all, if you read through the narrative in the report, that is where that comes from. So they've asked us in their letter that these are the items that they want us, that they would like to do. And so they want to sit down and talk and organize a plan. Nobody thought that, at least I don't believe they thought that the idea of a rent bank in Parksville was the thing to do. They wanted to use it for some form of applying it for affordable housing, specifically aimed at hospitality and tourist businesses. So that's where this is all coming from. If that was clear, I'm surprised, but that's what it was. Councillor Fraz.
Thank you, Your Worship, to council as well. Just to be clear as well, part of this is a partnership between the City of Parksville, Town of Qualicum Beach, the RDN, and the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association. And there has to be buy-in on all sides for the plan to function. If there isn't a buy-in, there's a disagreement, then the OAP plan can fall apart. So what we're asking here is, since we heard from the Qualicum Beach Tourism Association, myself and the mayor, we can go to the RDN and let them know that Parksville is a partner. We are behind what they're asking for as well, just so that everybody's on the same page. So that's why what this endorsement will be doing for us.
Okay, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
Your explanation was pretty clear. I just might not have been listening properly.
Well, that's not necessarily the case.
So the first thing I wanted to clarification on is the terminology on online accommodation platform, the OAP. At my age, I always thought it was something else, but anyways, online accommodation platform, what does that actually refer to? Is that actually refer to, like, you were talking about the online bookings like VRBOs and B&Bs type of thing?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, thank you. That helps for that. And the other terminology, I was unsure, what does a rent bank look like? You're suggesting that maybe this money could go into a rent bank for the Oceanside area. What would that look like? And like, does that go towards purchasing land or purchasing accommodation that's affordable for the workers? I'm not sure what that.
The way it was explained to us by the regent is that there was a fund of money sat there. So if you, for some reason, couldn't afford your rent or was having a hard time and needed some money just to pay your rent, then you could go to them and borrow the money from them and repay it back. Councillor Fraz.
Well, that's addressing the thing about the rent bank, though. We're not endorsing the rent bank option. The rent bank was an option through the John Howard Society. And what we're putting forward as a proposal is that they work with the SOS instead. The SOS has been approached, they're aware of this. And what we're asking to endorse is that the Qualicum Beach Tourism Association, that they discuss a plan with the SOS on how that money will be administered. And in particular, one of the items that we're asking for is that it's for hospitality industry, since this comes from, it's an affordable housing fund to hospitality workers. So if you work in the tourism industry and you need, if we're going to bring in workers for the summertime, but they can't afford housing in this area, that there's a program that they can then turn to get some, whether it's a grant or some kind of support on rental or housing options.
Thank you, Councilor Fraz. Just as a follow-up, so that would be in the form, it could play in the form of a subsidy for a tourism or a hospitality worker to make their rent in the Oceanside region. Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, it's for whatever they as a group bring to us as being their suggestion. So SOS and the Tourist Association would come up with their ideas, and then they would obviously bring it to each of the partners and go from there. Councillor Greer, then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with this. The only thing I'm saying is it's about 25,000.
Yeah.
Doesn't go very far when you're
doesn't.
talking about the region and Qualicum Beach and Parksville. So I just question how long that 25,000 would last. It's not going to last very long.
I believe you to be correct on that. It's not going to go long. It depends on what they're going to use it for as well. I mean, they may just decide not, and I'm not putting words in their mouth, but if they decide not to spend it for 2 or 3 years and hold it aside, and whatever they decide has to be approved by the province. Okay, so if they say we're going to hold it for 4 years and then we'll put $100,000 towards something, that's one thing. Or if they're going to use it as a part of the bank for the 25, maybe that is enough. Until I know what they want to do, I don't think we can say that it's going to be enough or it's not going to be enough. But
I question the idea of storing it for 3 or 4 years.
well, I just use that as an example. I
Yeah.
didn't mean it as a
Right.
fact.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I was just going to clarify that it's for hospitality workers.
Hospitality, and tourist workers.
Yes,
that's
and
what-
it was clarified, so thank you.
Yep, all right, thank you. All right, so we need to endorse the recommendations as outlined in their letter, so all those in favor? Carried. And number 3, I need a motion for number 3, that the region district be notified of the councils. Councillor Fraz, seconded by Councillor Chandler. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Do a little bit of housekeeping here, if we could. Reports, the fire chief, the Parksville and Qualicum Beach Joint Fire Services Review would to be released to the public tonight. So we need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the report be received. Councillor Greer, second by Councillor Chandler. Discussion on receiving. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And that the staff return to council with a recommendation for implementing the elements of the Parksville Volunteer Fire Department Fire Service Review once the fire chief has position for Qualicum Beach has been filled. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Fraz. Discussion. Councillor Wilson, you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a bit confused about what would be the recommendation for implementing the elements, since I thought we were going right back to the original. So maybe the CAO could explain.
No, why don't we let the chief? He's right there.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council. This recommendation was included on the report at a request in Qualicum Beach, and I thought to keep consistency between the two municipalities, I would leave this recommendation in the report so that the reports going to both councils were identical. One thing I should note is instead of where it says PVFD in that recommendation, it should say joint.
Sorry, could you explain that again, please, Chief?
This recommendation was included in the Qualicum Beach Council report, the report that went to Qualicum Beach Council at the request of staff there. And in order to maintain consistency, because we were working on this jointly, I decided to leave the recommendation in this report for council's consideration.
Okay. Councillor O'Brien is next.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Chief Norris, for putting this forward between us. And I just have to comment, I think that this is exactly the way that it should be proceeding, that staff return to council with recommendations for implementing elements of it so that we can review it anyways, and I think it's wise and to do so. But it seems to conflict with IC 2135 that was defeated by, I understand, maybe coming up for reconsideration. So I'm not sure, that is not the same thing, is all I'm getting at.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Through the CAO.
If I may, Your Worship. So this is actually referring to the part of the report that was specific to Parksville. So if you recall, there's elements in the Bear report that talk about our fire hall and those kinds of things. And so item 2 is that our chief would prepare a report to our council on those elements. So specific to, I think one of them was doing some amendments at the fire hall for safety reasons.
Right.
So it's not the same as the closed discussion that happened about joint items. This is just for the Parksville specific recommendations that were kind of, it was almost like 3 elements in that report. One was Qualicum specific, one was Parksville specific, and then one was joint. So
Thank you. As a follow-up, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you to the CAO. That does clarify it anyways. And I do know about the Bear recommendations for specific fire, police, or sorry, our own fire department here in Parksville, which is excellent. As a question, part of this resolution is to, once the fire chief position for Qualicum Beach has been filled, can we maybe through Chief Norris get an understanding of is this position not been filled yet, and or has it been posted as of this point?
The report became public in Qualicum Beach this morning, and the position was posted.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Frass, sorry.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I just wanted to extend my thanks to Chief Norris for the incredible amount of time and effort he's put in over this last long while, over a year here. It's I don't think anybody anticipated how long this journey was going to be taking us, but very much appreciated. And I think speaks largely to how Parksville and Qualicum as municipalities work together. And I really appreciate all your time and effort there, Chief Norris.
Okay. Councilor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And much like Councillor Fraz, I think a huge thank you goes out to your family as well. I know that being as a volunteer, that it's a lot of work on families, but it is doubly so for your family. So thank you again very much.
Thank you. Now, no further comments or questions. I will call item number 2. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Mr. Butterworth, are you there? I heard the bell.
Yes.
You're there? Would you like
Yes,
to give
I'm
us
here.
background on your report?
Yes, if I may, Your Worship. Section 234 of the Community Charter establishes the property tax due dates as the first business day after July 1st. The tax penalty for late payment of taxes is set by regulation at 10%, and council has the option to vary the due date and or the penalty percentages so long as the total penalty equals 10%. So the city's normal percentages pre-COVID were 5% on July 2nd and 5% at the end of September on tax balances owing. And in 2020, with the COVID, the provincial government delayed the first penalty on commercial properties to October 1st, and council delayed the penalty on residential properties to the same date. So for 2021, the province has not delayed the penalty date, so it reverts back to the normal penalty of 10% on July 2nd. So with COVID continuing to impact some businesses and residential taxpayers, it is proposed to reduce the penalty to be applied on July 2nd to 2%, so that those taxpayers that may still be impacted financially by COVID and cannot pay their property taxes will be less penalized by the city. And the recommendations are as per the agenda.
Thank you. I'd like a movement on the recommendation number 1 to receive the report. Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor of receiving? Carried. Number 2, I need a mover and a seconder on number 2. Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion? I just have a couple quick questions that I jotted down from earlier today. So, Lucky, if you would, please. This isn't the same program we put in last year for COVID, is it?
No, this program, or what we're proposing here, because last year was 5% on October 1st, so we're proposing 2% now and then 8% at the end of September. Our normal pre-COVID would have been 5% now and 5% at the end of September, or 5% July 2nd. So just to help the folks out a little bit who might still be struggling, it's just a proposal to reduce it to 2 and 8. It could go 1.5 and 8.5, or 1 and 9. We just have to be worried that we've got some very large payments due to the RDN, 6 million plus, and to the school in July. So we do want to make sure that we are getting our tax payments made. So some penalty is advised, but it could be quite low probably.
I would I'll carry on one more point if you don't mind. In my mind, I would like to see it go back to the same way as it was last year, where it's 0 penalty through until the end of September, and then the full 10% on October the 1st. Businesses, even if COVID disappears, which it's not going to, but even if it were, the businesses and the people living in town are all financially affected by what's gone on in the last 12 to 18 months. I think last year, the people of Parksville came through with flying colors. There was very few that took advantage, in percentage-wise, very few that took advantage of not paying. They still paid their money. We still receive enough money on prepayments that we get from the banks and that we get from the program that the city has to be able to cover our costs with regional payments and so on. I don't see that there's an exposure here for us financially. I think we would be much better served if we could help out the people of Parksville a little bit more. So I would like to make an amendment to this and say 0 penalty on July 1st and 10% on September 30th or October 1st, whatever we do. But who made the move? Who moved it? Councillor Greer, I need you and Councillor Patterson to agree on my amendment, if that were the case.
Yes, I agree with the amendment, although I might make a comment, can I?
Okay, let's just get through this part and then you're more than welcome. Okay, Councillor Patterson, you're okay with it? All right, so a friendly amendment, and now we're at 0% in July and 10% in September. Please, Councillor Greer.
The only comment that I would think that this 2% and 8% makes it easier than 10% September. I might be wrong on that, but it seems to me that hitting them with 10% out the last moment, I don't know. I agree with your motion, so maybe mine's not worth talking about, but I just thought this was a good scheme that made it quite easy. Anyway, so I'll leave it up to you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Why I seconded the recommendation of the 2 and 8 was for our taxpayers, that I really didn't want to see a huge penalty or anything applied. So I do appreciate the extension to October, and hopefully, like we said, in 2020, our residents came through with flying colors and everything, and I'm optimistic for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just have a question perhaps for Lucky, and that is, would we be able to cover a shortfall if we do this and people this year don't pay for whatever reason? I doubt that they would, but just in case, I'm wondering what Lucky thinks. And also, what would you think about the 10%, 0 and 10%, Lucky, for residents.
If I may, your worship, the, I could save up enough money to pay the regional district. This really is the big bill. The school district bill is about $1 million, or the school tax bill. And the regional district will be 6 or 6.5, somewhere in that range. I'm not sure, I haven't got it yet, but somewhere around there. I'll have to start putting some money aside in our savings rather than investing it longer term in GICs, just to make sure that I have enough money, or that we have enough money to pay those bills. But certainly there's enough time right now that I could accumulate that, so that wouldn't be an issue. If it goes like last year, it's not going to be an issue at all, because we did have, I can't remember the percentage, but 80 to 85% of the payments came in by July 2nd. So we did quite well last year. If the same thing happens this year, then there's not an issue at all. If it doesn't happen, then as I said, I could put money aside starting now and make sure that we have enough accumulated for that date. So 0 and 10, that's what it was last year. It was 0, 5, and 5 last year. 0 on the due date, and then 5 at the end of October 1st, and 5 on December 1st last year. So 0 and 10 would work as well. Hopefully everybody's paid their taxes by then, or most people have, and the 10% won't be that big of a hit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the other follow-up I would have to that, hope I'm going to have a brain freeze here. Sorry, Lucky. It's, would we need a motion to have you put money aside for that, or is that just something you will automatically do if we vote to have a 0-10?
If I may, Your Worship, through to the Councillor Wilson. Yeah, I would just automatically do it. I don't need a motion to do that. So I would just make sure cash flow is part of my job. So I would just make sure we have enough.
I'm going to let Councillor Fraz speak first, because he hasn't spoken yet, and the Councillor.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Lucky Butterworth. I realize you said last year if the same thing would happen, we'd be in good shape. I'm just curious if that was what the trend was like for years previous. Did we, is it typical that we're, 85% of the people are paying their property taxes on time? Did we see an increase of people deferring or delaying in paying their property tax because they were extended an extension? I'm just trying to gauge if reducing that penalty made a difference, or if it was kind of a wash.
If I may, Your Worship, the normal years, we're well over 90% collections by the due date. Last year was a little bit lower, but it wasn't significantly lower. I don't have the percentages with me right now to give that information, but it was definitely a little more outstanding at the due date, but it wasn't significantly more.
May I follow up?
Follow up.
And then I guess just to add on to that, then you said if we had the repeat of last year happen again, we'd be in fine shape. What would be the breaking point when we would not be in fine shape then?
To pay those bills, we would really only need to collect 50%, I would say, because that more than covers those 2 large bills that we have due then. And we have GICs maturing every month to assist with cash flows if we had a cash flow issue. So yeah, a low percentage of 50%, which would be extremely low, we would still be okay.
Okay. Councillor Patterson and Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Director of Finance. Now, myself as a residential taxpayer, I take advantage of the program through the city of Parksville, where I have money taken from my bank account each month. And I'm assuming that quite a majority of our residents in that do that as well. So are you able to, at our next meeting or after, and that be able to tell us what has been collected prior to the taxation deadline? Like I said, I am assuming that 75% of our residents use that program and that we have that money already.
If I may, your worship, I do have a few numbers off the top of my head. We're collecting right now, this would be both utilities and property taxes. Prepayments, our monthly payments amounts are around 400,000 a month. So yeah, it's not that high of a percentage of our total taxes, because that is taxes and utilities. So if you strip the utilities out to half of that, then, or even a third of that, then the taxes is 300,000 a month. So that's 4 million a year. We do have other people that actually just randomly make payments, such as myself, for instance. I'm not on the pause payment, but I put in a monthly payment. That amount I don't have off the top of my head, but the monthly amount is probably 300,000 or slightly less than that per month for the taxes.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Mr. Butterworth, if I could. So as I understand it, Lucky, then on a normal year by July 1st, you were suggesting that approximately 90% of the tax payments were paid. And yes, last year due to COVID, July 1st, they turned down to about 85%. I think I've got your figures right here. So would that not be probably the same? And even if it went to say only 80% of our total tax revenue does not seem to be enough to, or the difference of 10% to put us into a major shortfall. Would that be your understanding as well, that even if it went down to 80%, didn't pay by July 1st, like it wouldn't be that much of a shortfall if that jumped to 5% more?
If I may, actually, a normal year it's probably closer to 95% collections, and last year might have been at 90. So we're even ahead of where where the numbers I might have said earlier. So as I said, I think if we had a 50% collection rate by July 1st, we would be okay. There is a lot of people that defer their taxes, and so as long as those deferrals are going in, we're going to get payments from the province as well. That's usually a little bit delayed from the due date. It usually comes in later in July, but it's still, we get a lot of that prior to the RDN payment being due.
Right, and those deferrals, that's been ongoing even pre-COVID. So we've always known that is a delay happening on those deferral payments. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, we have no further questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Pardon me? On the, no, this is the whole thing. It was a friendly amendment. They agreed to it. The two agreed to changing their amendment or their. Okay, so it's 0 and 10 is the numbers on it. Yeah, on the motion. All right, so all those in favor of the amended motion that we're agreeing on. Okay, carried. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate that. Mr. Doxey, would you like to give us the background on your Bagshaw? I don't know why anybody would want to.
Sure, if I may, through your worship. So the report highlights most of the details. I'll just highlight a couple of key points. You'll see there's been some considerable efforts and towards budgeting and estimating the projects, and you'll see that they're now very much in line with the tender prices coming back in line with the budget. There's a couple of minor shifts that we are asking for. One is the storm budget to be amended by pulling out of the roadways budget. Both categories are actually funded through the general revenue account, or general fund, as I should say. And then the other ask is there to move from the water fund accumulated surface the $38,000. And a couple of the rationales behind all of this are a slightly more complicated connection point at Stanford at the south end of the project. It will tie in and facilitate a later water main improvement along Stanford when that project comes to fruition. and then there's also just the tender price issue. The other thing there is you'll see in the financial section is there is still some surplus showing up in the general revenue or the roadway accounts. And the other element I should highlight is that a good portion of the street sanitary lines are serviced through the rears of the properties. And the idea is that we're going to come back once the main works are completed in the roadway and tender that effort independently to complete those works through a trenchless technology. And so what that does is it potentially saves a lot of surface restoration works that would be normally hitting that roadway account. And so that's the explanation there behind the surplus. We should maintain that surplus until we actually complete the works, just in case there is an issue, a blockage, an interruption that would require us to have to go into the rear of properties. But the way it's shaping out is we can tender that independently and complete those works with very, very minor surface interruptions and some considerable cost savings, coming down the road. Other than that, the recommendations are as per the report. And if there's any questions, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much. We can, on this particular one, if you like, we can take all 4 items together. Do you want? No, wait, let's bring it up and then you can ask the question. Okay, so let's do all 4. Councillor Greer, you're making a motion to do all 4. I need a seconder. Councillor Fraz. Now, give Councillor Greer his first shot because he made the motion.
Thank you, Worship. No, I'm good with this. I have no troubles. Thanks.
All right. Councillor O'Brien, since you had your hand up prior, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Mr. Doxey. Just regarding this project in itself, I recall after the Corfield project was completed in the Jensen Greenway, it was noted that there was elimination had happened of the irrigation line that was supposed to run the length of the Jensen Greenway, and there was a suggestion that the Bagshaw, when the Bagshaw renewal was done, that there'd be a stub out and a line provided for the irrigation along Jensen. I'm just asking if that was included in the above tender.
Yes, it is. If I may, through your worship, sorry. Yes, it is. It's included and that shows up in the water account as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment since Councillor O'Brien took part of my question. Once this, I'm really, really pleased to see that we actually had 6 bids and everything, and that they're come back to us. Now, after today's date, in our package, it said that the work could begin in the next 3 weeks, and the completion would be in October of 2021. Now, all the residents in the area are very much aware that will take this amount of time over the summer. So that's my question to you, sir.
If I may, through your worship, from a very generalistic standpoint, they are. There's been a fair amount of communication with the team working on the job and the residents. They're until we get the final schedule honed down with between now and the period between the point of award and the point of commissioning the work. There's a number of submissions that have to take place between the contractor and the city, and that is kind of more fine-tuned scheduling, as well as traffic control plans and other plans as well, like asbestos maintenance and treatment, and all of those things have to be undertaken. And so when we have the final schedule, we would be communicating that back out to the residents to confirm.
Thank you. Please.
And how do you plan on doing that?
Typically, we would do that either by mail or by door knocker, like flyers.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. You're still on the hot seat, so keep going, Mr. Doxey. Willow Street water main.
Again, if I may, through your worship, this is a project that's come to fruition through an adjacent development. So a prior development just up the road there on Willow was required to provide some primary servicing and tie in over to Willow and I believe it's Soriel. And any account at the time, water and storm was routed around a cedar tree within a future road right of way. And now at this point in time, if this development goes to fruition, that cedar tree will be removed for the creation of the now adjacent roadworks that's required to the Works and Services bylaw. And this creates an opportunity through either the capital program or the works adjacent to, should that tree be removed as part of the roadworks, it allows us to improve the alignment of both the water line and the sewer line in the area. So that will kind of improve hydraulic capacity there to the water main servicing the area, fire protection, and it will improve similarly the flow characteristics for the storm line, removing a couple of extra bends and points for additional maintenance where debris can get held up in manholes and staff have to kind of go across country to jet them out or suck them out with the vac truck. So it is recommended to correct that alignment issue, kind of in conjunction with the development via economies of scale. And the numbers are kind of as per the report and the recommendation as per the report. If there's any questions?
Okay, let's handle the technical part here first. I need a mover and a seconder for all four. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Wilson. Discussion, any questions? I think it's a great idea to have it go in a straight line. So all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Doxey. Well done. Mr. Dawson, are you there? You're doing it? Okay. You don't look like Mr. Dawson.
If I may, Your Worship, just given the change in our times, I'm going to present this tonight on behalf of Mr. Dawson. So if I may, Your Worship, this follows on from earlier council direction that was given towards the end of last year to work together with the town of Qualicum Beach and also leave the option to work with the regional district of Nanaimo on our emergency program. And this is basically the first step, just continuing essentially the relationship with Qualicum Beach to create a formal new agreement for the emergency management Oceanside program. And we have started discussions with the regional district of Nanaimo as that was deferred back to us. Council and the town's recommendation to provide the fee for service has been sent back to staff for further discussion, but we figured it was quite important to solidify the very close relationship that we have with the town of Qualicum Beach in the interim so that we're not left without an agreement, as it does sometimes take a little bit longer for things to get on the board agenda. They don't meet as often as the city and town do. So our recommendations are per the agenda, and there's also a statutory element with a proposed bylaw as well.
Thank you. I need somebody to make recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Discussion. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to our CAO, acting EMO. On this page 53 of the background information, I think it's a great program, and I think it's wonderful that we're doing working cooperatively with our neighbors, and works out good. Under financial impact, it said the proposed two-way joint agreement is an overall increase of $22,000 over the now expired 3-year way agreement, which would be split 50-50 with the cost of $11,000 to the city of Parksville. I just wasn't sure. I was trying to read what the $22,000 total. It's a change in the agreement. I was wondering where the extra cost came from.
Sure, if I may, Your Worship. Is that on? So at the previous agreement, which expired at the end of last year, was several items were shared 3 ways between the city, the town, and the regional district of Nanaimo. At the moment, there is no agreement for financial contributions from the regional district of Nanaimo. However, we do anticipate that they would be wanting to share at least some elements, so that the negotiations will continue with them At this point, we've heard that they're certainly interested in participating in the volunteer program. And that is a coordinator position, which we used to split 3 ways, which was about $22,000 each. So that reflects the change that the regional district is not currently committing to the financial element until we have a new agreement that would address that with them.
Any other questions? I'll call the questions. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mrs. Weeks, please.
So at the January council meeting, staff were authorized to issue a request for proposals for the 2 existing mobile food vending pads in the community park for a 1-year term with the option to renew for a further year. 2 proposals were received for the summer season, and staff are requesting council direction with respect to entering into the agreement for the mobile food services in the community park. And the recommendations as per the council agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the 4 recommendations. Did I see your hand up, Councillor Wilson? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion? Councillor Chandler?
Thank you. Through your mayor, to the manager of administrative services. I noticed in section 2 here that the dollar amount is substantially lower this year, I believe, than we've seen in the past, like dramatically lower. And so it just concerns me that we're not maintaining a level of costs there. That are we able to cover all our costs with these lower numbers? And it just seems like that's quite a difference compared to what it used to be. So would you be able to let us know what that was last year potentially?
I would have to look that up because they didn't pay for May and June last year, I believe. Do you remember, Kiva?
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Chandler, I believe the costs are very similar. The only difference that I'm aware of is that in previous years, there's been a set rate for September, which would not be, at this point, they're asking for some flexibility for September, that it be kind of a daily rate. I wonder though if perhaps the 5,900, that's the monthly rent. So when we multiply that by 4, I think last year was about 37,000. So that would be about the same, I think. I don't know if our Director of Finance is still on the line and he could confirm, but my recollection was that it was about 37,000 last year for the total, which would be about that right amount per month. And the manager of administrative services is correct. We gave a discount for May and I believe part of June just because of COVID.
Just as a follow-up then to that, just a comment then. Thank you for clarifying that. It just seemed like it was quite different than the way it was written before. Then maybe it was proposed differently to us in the past, and but it did look like quite a large sum of difference here. So thank you very much for the clarification.
Hopefully next year it'll be back to a normal reading. Councillor Greer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question. When we have 3 units down there, do we have a contract price for the 3rd unit or 4th unit?
Would you go ahead?
No, the set rate, through your worship, the set rate is the monthly rate. It doesn't matter if they have 2 or 3.
So if there's 3, then that monthly rate is
It's the same.
3 times. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. In my speaking notes here, it has Councillor O'Greer and Councillor O'Brien. Yeah. No, we won't let them be. Would one of you like to give us an update on the grant and aid from the Grant and Aid Select Committee?
Thank you, Your Worship. Between Councillor O'Greer and Councillor O'Brien, we came to some discussions regarding the grant and aid applications for this spring for 2021. We came up with there's a grand total of $2,500. We came up with the decision to award Oceanside Minor Softball Association $1,000. The Parksville Curling Club, $1,000. The Parksville and District Historical Society, $500, for a total of $2,500.
Pretty straightforward. Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for both recommendations, number 1 and number 2. Councillor Wilson, and give it to Councillor Chandler as the seconder on this one. Any discussion? Go ahead, please.
Thank you through the mayor. I just want to say thanks to the two councillors for the work they've put in. I know it takes the time for that committee, and I really appreciate you guys doing that for us. Thank you.
Well, now I have nothing to say since Councillor Fraz took my line away from me. Thank you. No problem. Yes, thank you from myself as well for that said. It's a thankless job at times, but and Amanda, she was involved in this too. Exactly. All right. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 3 readings, the Emergency Program Regulator Bylaw 2021, number 1570, Emergency Program Bylaw Update for consideration of 3 readings. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Patterson, and seconded by Councillor Chandler. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Notice of motion. At the last meeting, I gave a motion, traffic light signal timing. Pardon me?
No,
I'm missing another page.
no, we didn't, there was no minute, so I didn't add it in, but if, maybe under new, we can do it if,
I don't even know what we were talking about.
the Parks and Open Space Committee. Never mind, I think we're good. Are we good?
Are we all right?
Okay, we'll put the minutes on.
All right. So I made a motion at the last one regarding, at the last meeting, a notice of motion that the staff be directed to amend the timing on the traffic light signal for crosswalks at McCarter and Island Highway to increase the crossing time and allow those with mobility challenges additional time to get all the way across the road in this location, and that council authorized the $3,000 cost to implement the change. I'm moving it. I need a seconder for that. Councillor Greer is seconding. Any discussion? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. Would it be possible to make a friendly amendment to this motion? It's an excellent motion as it stands, but I would just also add, in addition to changing the time to cross the road anyways, and adjust the response time to immediate instead of currently the inappropriate length delay response to the after pushing the button. So in other words, to adjust the response time from pushing the button to immediate instead of such a delay.
Can I just?
Go ahead,
Sorry,
please.
if I may,
I'm-
that may not be as easy to adjust with that cost, because that could potentially affect the entire system all the way along. They're timed all the way along the whole city. So perhaps if we could maybe discuss this one, we could have staff comment on the ability to do that. I think that could be a significantly more expensive endeavor. I don't know, is Mr. Doxey still here? But
Mr. Doxey, are you still there or have you left?
If I may, through your worship, I am still here. It would be something I would need to discuss with the traffic engineer to determine, to get a better handle on the price and impacts. It certainly would be possible. It may mean that instead of doing one timing chart, we might be doing 4 or 5 timing charts. And so that becomes, 15,000 or 20,000 as opposed to 3,000.
If I'm not mistaken, what happens is when you push that button, it has to time out so that it coincides with the traffic up the rest of the road. And I think that's where the issue becomes. Then you're going to have to adjust all of those all the way up is what I'm understanding, is it?
Yeah, and if I may, Your Worship, there were some other technical challenges even with this one. It's kind of a chain reaction, and one of the things that staff had actually recommended was that there should be probably a more extensive review, which we do kind of on a, I would say, semi, every so many years, but it's about a $50,000 item for that.
Councillor O'Brien, could I make a suggestion if that we ask staff to look at it before, and then we can always bring it back. If there's a couple $1,000s in it or whatever, then we can ask staff to bring it back at that time if it's workable. If it's going to be this massive number that we're hearing, then I'm not sure that we would consider it. I'll be with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, I agree. It's just that when I note that it's changing the timing of the crossing to it type of thing, that just changing the timing is going to affect the light at Corfield and 19A, as well as going to affect the light down. The next one is not down until McMillan. So that in itself is going to change that type of thing. So I would be okay to go as it is without the amendment. But the thing is that at least for staff to look at it to see if it's possible to add in it for a reasonable amount at that time, that would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Frass.
Thank you. I just want to take the chance, and since we're on this crossing, to speak to some of the challenges that Councillor O'Brien is talking about, because I agree with him that it can be a very long time. Sometimes it can be very quick. If you catch it at the same time that it's changing at the light at 19A there, it can happen fairly quickly, but other times it can be upwards of 2 minutes. And what that can do is you can be there at the crosswalk, you press it, there can be maybe no cars in sight, and you're waiting for the lights to flash before you walk. But then since there's no cars, you're at a crosswalk, people cross there anyways, and then it's not till later that cars come and they're stopping for flashing lights when there's no one there crossing. Alternatively, there's times when people are waiting there for the lights to flash and cars are stopping because they see people at a crosswalk, but the people aren't prepared to walk because the lights are flashing. So those few minutes there creates a really confusing situation at times. And I think it's quite an annoyance. It doesn't prioritize pedestrians walking in the community. It definitely prioritizes the traffic flow. And for downtown core, I think looking at prioritizing pedestrian flow is worthwhile. So I do support the premise of taking a look at it, seeing what it takes. My concern is that it probably is going to be very expensive, and it's probably going to take a lot more work than just a simple change. So yeah, I hope, I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of what we get as it, because I do think there's annoyance there that needs to be more than annoyance, but it does need to be looked at.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was also going to say that for me, I have a difficult time crossing in time. So I would think that it may be worth us looking at before we just take one and see what it entails, because I think all the crosswalks can be problematic that way for even people who are not necessarily mobility challenged, but they might have children, et cetera. So
the point here was that it was this one that has been the problem coming from the park over. And I understand that concern, because I too have a problem getting across in the allocated time. And that's what brought this to a head. To start changing all of the times all the way along is a massive undertaking that's going to take a lot more than $3,000 to put through. So can we get this one done and move forward? And then when we go and re-establish what's going on in those downtown streets, let's look at it at that point in time and come up with a solution, if that makes sense. So if that's the case and nobody else has any questions, I will call this question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Does any member of council have any new business? Councillor Wilson had her hand up pretty quick.
thank you, Your Worship. I have a motion, a notice motion I'd like to make. That council participate in an afternoon workshop with staff in May to discuss the options proposed in the Lanark 2006 study for downtown revitalization strategies for the city of Parksville as a starting point to revitalize the downtown area defined by the ocean north of 19A, McMillan and McVicker Streets and Jensen Avenue in order to create an attractive, unified pedestrian friendly downtown to enhance accessible connectivity to the waterfront and downtown and to create a strong sense of place and a destination point for tourism. So basically it's a workshop that I'm asking for a notice of motion on with staff.
You want to put it through a notice of motion for the next meeting? Is that what you want to do? Okay.
Unless everybody wants to vote on it now.
I'd like to think about it before I do it, but that's up to council. If you can ask for council's approval, unanimous approval to do this.
All right, I'll ask for council approval if they want to put it through now.
All right, everybody, I'll call the question. All those in favor of deciding on this now? I'll vote for it for now. We can have the conversation at this point in time if you wish. All right, we need a seconder for your motion then. Councillor O'Brien. Discussion. Councillor Fraz. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson first.
So,
It's yours.
thank you, Your Worship. So I think it might be a good idea for this council being the first time around for us, that we have a starting point. And so if we have a workshop, as we did with the development with our planner, it really does help to make things clearer for us and perhaps give us a bit of a direction in our vision before we go too far down the road with more development. And even when we do, it's just nice to know where we're going, how we see the town. So I think if we can take it in that small quadrant of the downtown area and at least open up that conversation. Right now we have the community gas tax grant. And if possible, it would be very nice if we could make use of some of that money because it does apply to this sort of thing. And I think also we do have a new special projects coordinator coming on board, I believe. No, we don't. Okay. So that was just another thought that this might be a good time for doing that. But I still think it would be really a good idea if we could have the discussion and then we can open it up maybe to a survey for the public or the committee of the whole for the public after, once council has even a concept of what we might want to, the direction we might want to go and what it would mean, how long it would take to get started with this, then we could go into perhaps even an idea of budget and how we'd even pay for this. So that's what I'd like to see anyway. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Councillor Fraz had his hand up and Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. And just want to say thanks to Councillor Wilson. I think it's a great idea to start putting a vision towards things like the downtown. Obviously, as we were talking about with crosswalks and things like that, we were looking at, had concerns about the pedestrian walkability. There's actually, I was planning to bring a notice of motion here forward tonight too that touches on an item that would, I think, tie into that to some degree. But my question I have would be for staff is with having a workshop being proposed for May, is that something that I imagine you guys have spoken perhaps, or if there's room to, are we able to accommodate a workshop in the next
Go
month?
ahead.
If I may, Your Worship, yes, I think that because there is a document that I would expect council would want to review, staff wouldn't necessarily prepare a report for that particular workshop. We would just be there to facilitate the discussion. There's been work done already that council has paid for, but not really, I think, paid a lot of attention to converting that into like a capital project or some kind of action. So I think staff would be there as a resource, but it would really just be a good opportunity for council to review what they might want to sort of take forward out of that downtown revitalization plan or other plans that we have sitting on shelves. So really probably the staff work would come after that once council has some direction, perhaps even doing RFPs to see what kind of costs might be associated with the things you want to implement. But no, we will definitely be able to make it work. So.
Councillor Fraz.
Yeah, so then just to follow up on that, then, yeah, it's definitely some I support then. I see this as a long-term game plan too, which you got to start somewhere, you got to start taking those steps. So I appreciate that. Whereas other things like the, the change in the lights are more immediate type things that we can still address. So yeah, I thank you for bringing that forward, and I'd support it.
Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship, and yeah, thank you to Councillor Wilson again for bringing this forward. This is long, long overdue, and as we already just discussed, anyways, regarding the timing of the lights and so forth, we're all into safety and community safety and traffic calming. So we think it's a good initiative. The timing is excellent, and I'm looking forward to putting this together, recognizing that the downtown core is critical to surviving by making it safe and a total walkable community, and making Parksville, the downtown Parksville, the destination, and not just the shortcut drive through to another location. So the timing is great. So thank you very much for bringing this up. I'm fully support this.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll just throw in a couple of my comments, if you don't mind. First off, there's absolutely no doubt that I've been in favor of this for the last 12 years. If anybody goes into my office, they will see the drawings that were done. I think the cautions that we have to be careful of, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Keeler, but if I'm not mistaken, wasn't a Lanark fired from this project?
If I may, Your Worship, that's before my time, so I
Yeah,
can't comment on that.
I believe so. But so we have to use what the report, the rest of that report with, part of it is brilliant. But part of it is, so we need to look at that very carefully. My deepest concern here, folks, and Councillor Fraz just brought up, I know there's a couple more motions coming up. Folks, it wasn't 8 weeks ago that we sat down and we said, let's get rid of this item because we don't have time. Let's get rid of this because we don't have time. Let's get rid of this. And we took and we dismantled a number of projects because staff didn't have time. Staff are running flat out right now. And the frustration level and the just the whole atmosphere, you can feel the tension because of it. And I'm just cautioning us that we don't start throwing all these little, and this isn't a little one, but we've got to be very, very careful on what we're giving to staff to do. And in this particular case, I think the idea in a workshop, if the CAO believes that they can do it without minimal amount of staff participation, that's great. Then let's do it, because yeah, it's just what will come after that is my concern, because then we're opening the floodgates to where we're going to go. So please just bear this in mind when we're having these conversations. This isn't something that we're going to be by the June the 1st having an RFP out there and ready to go. So that's the only caution I have. Other than that, I'm totally in support of this. So Councillor Wilson, you have your finger up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know you're in support of this, but I just want you to know that I did meet with our CAO, and we talked about it, and the idea of it being a workshop and being minimal amount of staff time was how I thought, okay, I can make this motion rather a committee of the whole right now. So I'm fully aware of that, and I think that the Lanark is a good starting point for us. It does. It has lots of things in it that we can certainly discuss. So hopefully we'll have a successful meeting.
And as I said, I think it's a great idea, and I'm all prepared for it. Let's just, when we get the reports, when we all get it, let's not start having planning and engineering running around chasing after bits of pieces of information and stuff like that. If we're going to do this, that's my concern. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm assuming that I probably still have that report, because, but is it an issue for staff to bring it forward so that we have time to review?
Pardon me?
If I may, Your Worship, we'll print off a copy for everyone's cubbies.
Okay, so within the next couple of days, I think we can get it, because it's a fair amount of reading, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go from there. 50 pages. All right. Everybody's satisfied? I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Good recommendation, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Fraz?
Thank you. I have a motion I'd like to put forward for consideration to be voted on this evening. And the motion would be to direct staff to install a four-way stop system at Despard, Molliet, and Trillium and monitor the traffic effects over the next 6 months and report back to council, and that any incidental costs up to $2,500 be taken from council contingency.
We need a seconder. Councillor Greer seconding. Discussion. You're first.
So reason I'm bringing this forward here tonight is we had looked at this previously, and we decided that before we would move forward on any kind of progress for the issues up on Despard or any traffic, that we would meet with the school board. And we agreed that we would come back in the fall with, start making some decisions in there. So recognizing the length of time that will take to come up with a permanent solution, and that we've since then already met with the school board. I'd like to see this as an interim measure. I think it would have an immediate effect. And while we talked about, making sure that we don't overload staff with too many things from day-to-day operations, I think this is the type of thing that residents, we provide something that gives them immediate enjoyment and livability and improved service in their community. So I think it's important for all of them. And I've spent some time looking out at down at that area, both when school comes into session in the morning and in the afternoon there, watching how traffic flows. That intersection, it's very uneven. And it's a very, for a driver to go through, there's a lot of information to kind of take in and process as they go through the intersection. I think having a chance to take a stop, take in the information is going to be very helpful towards them. So this is why I'm bringing this forward tonight.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't support this due to the fact that a four-way stop was not actually recommended by the traffic consultant that we hired, as well as our acting director of engineering, Mr. Doxey, who put a very thorough and comprehensive proposal for traffic calming at the Molliet intersection. In fact, the four-way traffic stop would actually, I think, be a detriment to that corner, because it actually could possibly cause further accidents because it backs out onto the Alberni Highway 4A, which is super busy and super fast at that area. And so if traffic is coming around that corner and doing a right-hand turn onto Despard Avenue, and then immediately just at the edge of where the new Cascadia liquor store is, at Molliet is come to a screeching halt, and then put that with the increased traffic and parents dropping off their kids in the morning and the afternoon type of thing, it's going to be a lot of traffic all coming in, and that could actually back out into 4A, which creates a super dangerous situation. Four-way stops could work in certain areas, but not when the intersection is so close to another highway intersection. And I believe that's why the traffic consultant did not recommend that as even a possible solution. So I think it would be a detriment and actually a safety hazard to actually put that in now. And who are we? I'm sorry, we're laymen here. I totally defer to the traffic consultant. He did not put that in any of his options as recommendation to make that a safer intersection. So I cannot support a stop sign at that location.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really glad that we were able to have a Zoom meeting with the school board and the superintendent. And I know that I said that I really wanted to see something prior, like as whatever we could do to minimize and look at some of the concerns and everything. But I was looking online and that too, because one of the topics or questions that we had and everything too was traffic and with COVID, that the students that are on the buses, there's only 1/3 of students riding our buses and everything at this point in time. So we do have more parents that are dropping off and picking up children, and that as those buses aren't full. So I am concerned. Like I said, I want to see something, and prior to September. And if Mr. Doxey is still present or not, if, I'm not sure if he is, if he has any comments, I would really appreciate them. This was a topic of that we discussed at the previous meeting, and that, so if we could, and I know that it wasn't with our traffic, with the traffic engineer, but we did discuss it at that point in time. So if you could
Thank you.
see, thank you.
Pardon me?
I believe that Mr. Doxey is still on the line, and I also believe that we received some feedback on this from the RCMP, which either he or I could share.
Feel free.
If I may, Worship, perhaps if I say something completely wrong, our acting director can correct me, but I believe that I will be agreeing with Councillor O'Brien in that there were some technical concerns expressed from staff about that very item, and we also had the same concerns expressed from the RCMP about road rage, where if somebody is stopped too often, they tend to see some concerns. And so I totally understand the desire to do something quickly or do something to show that council is receptive to the concerns. But as I've mentioned to a couple of folks individually, from a technical engineering perspective, it's not a recommended solution at this point. Not to say that council can't override that, but I believe that Mr. Doxey and our staff sergeant and the traffic consultant expressed some technical concerns about that approach.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I too, as Councillor Fraz had mentioned, I was in favor of speaking about a traffic calming measure with having the four-way stop. I always, defer to information that's coming in, especially from people that are in traffic, and when the police have issues with it as well. I want to listen to that. That's obvious. It's obviously something that we need to take heed to. However, I think something needs to be done. I think, I really don't want to leave this until the end of September or to the next session. I think that it's important for us to act. I think that's really where Councillor Fraz is coming from here, is get something in place, have it looked at, and have a chance to look at it during the school season, just for the last tail end of it before they go into their summer break. And so in reality, for that 6 months, we're only going to see a certain amount of traffic that's going to be swelling in a large amount like the school year. So I think we'll see less and less traffic over the next little while. But anyways, that's my comment. I would still support the idea if there was more data on it and some more information. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak to this for a second here. Technical solution. We were told on Northwest Bay Road that the technical solution was not to put a four-way stop on that corner. It's the best thing that's ever happened to that corner. It's calmed it right down. It's made it very safe. And I think the residents would agree that it's worked out well, even though technically the engineer said it doesn't work and that. Secondly, I have a real problem with understanding this concept about backing up onto the highway. It is exactly the same distance from this corner here out to Highway 4 as it is the other. And the traffic is 4 times more on this corner than it would be at the corner of Molliet and Despard. And we've never seen it even come close. I've never seen more than 5 cars parked up there. So, yeah, I understand the technicalities of it, but technicalities are numbers. The reality here is that this is something, I'm not even suggesting that this is the permanent solution. In fact, I might think that it's not, but it gets us over this hump until we get the proper solution. That's what I'm saying here. So technical solutions, good idea, but reality solutions, real solutions are what we need for a short period of time. We need to slow the traffic down, and therefore I'm going to support this. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also support it, and I agree that it doesn't have to be a permanent situation, but I think we should try it to see what the results might be. I think the greater problem too is the cars parking along Despard. They shouldn't be parking there, dropping off the kids and picking them up. I think if we cleared that area, it would also give better visibility and be less of a problem. But I would suggest that we try this. I'm in agreement with it. Thanks.
Sorry, I jumped over Councillor Wilson. She's,
You certainly did. Thank you, Your Worship.
my apologies.
So I think I'd have to defer to our engineering and our experts in this. I still have an issue with the distance, just as a layperson, from the highway and the stop sign there. But there was also another suggestion, and I agree that we need to do something, but I think there was a suggestion of a flashing amber light, which, you know, warns people that there's school ahead. Is that not another solution that's more viable, and I think was suggested, if I'm correct, Akiva?
If I may, Your Worship, there were several options presented, and perhaps at this point it might make sense to just bring that report back a little bit sooner. It was deferred until the fall. Right now, the RCMP are monitoring the situation on a daily basis at both pickup and drop off. They are looking at where people are parking. They're looking at speed. Our staff are also doing the same, monitoring speed, and our bylaw officers are doing routine patrols. And so I think perhaps even in the next few weeks, there might be more information that provides factual stats for council, just given that there are, I think now 5 options at least on the table, and perhaps staff could bring it back at the second meeting in May or the first meeting in May so that everyone can have all of the information in front of them, if that would assist.
Can I have a follow-up?
Please.
If that's the case, then can we defer this or make a motion that we wait for staff to bring this back before anything's done with this?
Are you asking for a deferral?
Or I'm asking, yes, whatever it is that we need to do so that we get proper report from staff before we make a decision on this.
You're asking for a deferral.
All right, thank you very much.
I need a seconder for the deferral.
Or do we just make a motion that we wait for staff to bring it back?
No, you can defer. There's an open motion on the floor at this point in time, so you can't make another motion while that one's still alive.
So then we have to defeat
So the only
this
way
motion.
you can dispose of it is either vote it down or to defer it until that time. Okay, which I think is what you're trying to do here.
So I think we should vote it down then and wait for staff to come back.
All right, so that's your deferral. I need a seconder for the deferral. I don't see anybody seconding it, so that deferral dies on the floor. Moving right along, Councillor O'Brien, you're next, and then Councillor Fraz.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a comment, yes, I'm totally in agreement with Councillor Patterson here that we do want something to be happening sooner rather than later. And just by turning down the 4-way stop sign does not in any mean that I want to actually make this delayed even further. I didn't bring the traffic study with me, but as I recall, option 4 anyways was the one that had all the bells and whistles on it for the maximum amount of safety for these kids in this entire intersection. For those to say that perhaps that there's going to be a little less traffic when the COVID is over and the school buses are running at full capacity is absolutely true, but recognizing as well as since that time of the traffic that we did the traffic study before, Quality Foods had not opened up the mall right on the corner to an amazing success, I might add anyways, and as well as the district development going right across the street will be filling up pretty soon as well. So the thing is that that traffic calming measure was done by a consultant and with the blessing of our acting director of engineering, and I recall the amount was $77,500. and it had the flashing lights that Councillor Wilson was mentioning, and plus everything else to do it. The question I have, I guess anyways, if Acting Director Joe Doxey is still on with us here, if he could give us an idea if this, is there any chance that, or what would be the time span in between implementing this, Mr. Doxey, and actually when could it actually happen? Because we're trying to move this forward, of course, after our meeting with the school board, which is very, we want to do all we can. If Mr. Doxey's there.
Just a point of clarification, if I could, Councillor O'Brien, is what is it that we're trying to accomplish? So,
sorry, the question to Mr. Doxey is if we went for what the traffic consultant advised and confirmed as option 4, you'd be able to describe, because we don't all have that in front of us right now, the 77,000, I think 500 option. From now until when that could happen if we decided to vote in favor of that? How long would that take?
okay, thanks.
If I may, through your worship, it would probably take approximately 2 to 3 months to prepare adequate drawings and specifications in place to put out a tender for competitive construction pricing. And then that would take an additional 2 to 3 weeks to have out for competition. And then in terms of implementing, it could be as little as 2 months. So you're probably looking at under 6 months, I guess, for implementation, for a very conservative number. It's possible it could be implemented with our operations department, but they're also fairly, they're kind of maxed out in terms of capacity and manpower resources at this point in time. So we'd likely have to contract it out.
Thank you. Councillor Fraz.
So keeping that in mind, we're over a year out from having like wait until September to start making decisions on things, then getting, redesign of the roads there, anything done. That's a very long time to be going with it. So what I'm proposing here is just something in the interim. It's immediate. Something to keep in mind though too, when there's that concern of, is it going to back up traffic into the intersection if we put a stop sign and start stopping cars there? We're already stopping cars there with crossing guards. We have human stop signs. When the cars are coming, we stand out there in the morning. This is what I witnessed. They're stopping the cars. And what a stop sign allows it to do is, instead of it being like a stoplight where people are just going to stop all the time, it allows the flow of the traffic to trickle through. It doesn't back up to the intersection. If it was going to happen with a stop sign, it would already be happening. And we're not seeing that be the case. But like I say, they're already stopping them because when the kids cross, the crossing guards take up the whole intersection. It's a terrible line of sight when you're making the approach to the intersection. It's completely misaligned. And I think it's, unless the driver is, unless they're expected to stop, it's almost like, as a driver myself going through there, I would welcome the opportunity to stop and take in kind of what's going on. Because if you're going to make a right-hand turn onto Molliette or go through Despard, you have a matter of moments to turn onto the street, take in the information. Are there kids here? Are there cars here? Whose turn is it you're coming up? And like I say, to a misaligned intersection. None of the crosswalks are the same. None of the approaches are the same. There's not time enough for the drivers to safely engage. It almost seems like sometimes you're just closing your eyes and hoping for the best as you go through there. Stopping people, giving them a chance to see whose turn it is going to make it a lot safer. That's why the crossing guards get out there. So I think it's a very reasonable thing. I understand why engineers are not going to say, oh, we can't support it. It doesn't tick all their boxes. So they're not going to ever say that this is the way we should do. They can't, they will never be able to say that to something they support because they can't support it. It doesn't meet their criteria. We're in the seat where we can say, look, we can operate outside the box and come up with a reasonable solution. And we won't know really how much there is to gain unless we give this a try. It doesn't have to be the permanent solution, but I think, it is there's a lot of value to it.
Okay, Councillor Greer, and then we're going to, and
Sorry.
Councillor Wilson.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was just looking through some of my things. The last thing I was going to say too is one of the frustrations for drivers too is if you're coming off Molliette, which you're going to see a lot more drivers now with the QF, you don't have a turn to make a left-hand turn to the highway unless there is no traffic. But if you provide a stop system there, then everyone knows they're going to get a turn. I think it's more frustrating for me if I'm sitting at there and I see cars coming in there and they're going to do a right-hand turn onto Moliette, but they don't turn their turn signal on. I'm like, oh, I could have gone there. Oh, I could have gone there. But you're waiting to see if they're going to go through the intersection or not. At least having a stop system would give everybody a turn. And like I say, it trickles the flow of traffic. It's not like a stoplight where everyone just has to stop. The constant trickle effect through. So I think it would be a great improvement.
Councillor Greer and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I think we should give this a try. It doesn't have to be a permanent situation, but I think it's worthwhile to give it a try. We can try it for a month, 2 months. It's not that going to cost that much money. If it doesn't work out, if it's really a bad situation, we can eliminate it. But I think we have to do something and to show also the school board that we're doing something. And I think it's important that we try to do this even on a temporary basis. So I still support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess a couple of things. What would happen with the left-hand turn coming from Alberni Highway? Or, yeah, from the Alberni Highway. I'm trying to think of how you've got a left-hand turn signal and you've got all these cars that are going to turn left, but then you're going to be stopping just inside of that. And aren't you going to have problems with cars stuck in the middle of the turn? I would think, perhaps Mr. Doxey could answer that. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me to do the stop sign. I mean, I understand why you want to do it, but I just don't think it's the right location. I don't know whether or not a yield sign might help on one side, perhaps, whether Mr. Doxey could address that, whether that might work for one direction, perhaps.
I think we're putting Mr. Doxey in a situation where, without having the benefit of information that he needs to make these decisions, it's not fair to him to be able to do that. So
Then you see, but then I can't make a decision because I
understand that.
I don't have that information either. So I thought perhaps an engineer might have a little more understanding of how that traffic might back up.
If I may, Your Worship, I think that staff's technical recommendations are known at this point, and the challenge is that what we're hearing from council is that there's a willingness or a desire to maybe try something that is not a technical engineering solution. And so I agree with you. I think it's pretty challenging for Acting Director Doxey to weigh in because we are sort of forced, or he as a professional is forced to rely on different things. And so I don't think he can provide the out-of-the-box thinking that council is trying to seek here. So it kind of does put us in a bit of a tough situation in that we're kind of forced to look at liability and we're forced to look at standards in a different way than perhaps council is. So,
Councillor O'Brien, and then we're going to wrap this one up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too, I need more information. Councillor Greer mentioned about putting in a temporary solution with the stop signs and that if they don't work, we can just take it out. But I remember when, as Mayor Main mentioned at Northwest Bay Road, putting the stop signs in, and that was only a three-way stop. Putting the stop signs in was a considerably big job. It was all the lineage had to be painted on the roads, and all the signage had to go back to like letting people know there's a stop sign coming up ahead. So it turned out to be quite an extensive job. It's not just a matter of like putting 4 stop posts in the ground. So I think we're all saying here that we need more information. I would like to make a motion to defer this until we get more information. Defer this motion.
I need a seconder for the deferral. Not seeing any.
Yes.
I thought I deferred this originally, didn't I?
No, you didn't
No,
defer.
defeat
it.
it.
Well, I'll second it.
All right, and we call the question. Defer this. I need a vote on it now. All those in favor of deferring? All those in favor of not deferring? There we go.
Doesn't a deferral automatically take it off the table? No, sorry.
No.
sorry, if I may your motion.
Yes, you may.
Go
If I
ahead.
may, Your Worship. We need a motion, but once the motion is passed, there's no more debate with the deferral.
Okay.
So No, because I want to address this one more time on this here. We've got a problem here. The problem is that we have what's being perceived as a dangerous intersection, and the traffic has increased significantly there. So it's not for me to argue one way or another whether it is a dangerous intersection or not. But I would rather err on the side of caution than err on the side of, $2,500 for a sign or a set of signs. So we've got two choices. We either do nothing and we go forward with the $77,500 project, and 6 months from now, we finally come up with a decision and we do it. So we've ran for 6 months with the kids crossing the street without the benefit of at least having stop signs there. Or we put the stop signs there and we continue to work forward on whatever comes up as the next. There is a better solution. There's no doubt about it. But what that solution is, putting yellow signs or flashing signs, sounds like a really good idea and everybody jumps up. But I used to drive every day on the highway where that yellow sign is, and damn, when you put your foot out on that road, you took your life in your hands because you didn't know if cars were going to stop or not at that intersection or at that crosswalk. So all I'm saying is that we need to get the right answers before we make this decision. I'm not suggesting we delay it, but even if we decided next council meeting that we're going forward, as the acting director says, we can be anywhere from 4 to 6 months out before we get an actual implementation of this. So in that next 4 to 6 months, why don't we just, for the price of those signs, if we take them back down again, we'll use them some other corner somewhere else in the city. It's not like we've thrown them out in the garbage. We can use these signs, and we can err on the side of caution is all I'm suggesting at this point in time. And then let's go forward with trying to find the right solution as we go. That's what it is. So having said all of that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of Councillor Fraz's motion? 5 and opposed. Please mark down that it's Councillor Wilson and Councillor O'Brien. Thank you. All right. You have your hand up for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, it could be new business, but I need to pose a question.
Sure.
Now that that decision has been made, can we bring back the traffic study to make a decision on what we're going to do for the future?
Good point. We'll ask the CAO what she thinks.
If I may, Your Worship. So currently the motion or the resolution is that we would bring it back in the fall. However, staff can bring it back if council gives direction tonight at a different date. And as I mentioned, there is some ongoing research and monitoring happening. So perhaps if we gave that about a month, we started after spring break, so we're about 2 weeks in. We could bring it back to council at the end of May, if that works. And that way there's perhaps some more information that we can share to help your decision making. We can certainly bring it back before if you wish, but might help out.
I think that's probably a pretty amicable solution on this one, if that's the case. Okay.
So I'm assuming that doesn't require a motion, then staff will just bring.
No. Okay. Any other new business? I thought that was going to go fast. Go ahead. Councillor Fraz.
I have a notice of motion for our next council meeting. So I'll just read it out here. I've already passed it off to Herdman. It's for staff to review and report back to council within 6 months, the number and locations of current city garbage cans in the downtown, and come back to council with a strategy for more even and convenient distribution. Also to inform the PDBA of our intention of reorganizing the current inventory of garbage cans in the downtown core from McVickers to McMillan.
So you're going to make a notice for next.
That's a notice for our next meeting.
All right. Thank you. Any other business, new business? Fair enough. Before we move to our closed meeting, I would like to remind the public that our next regular council meeting will be on Monday, April the 19th at 6 p.m. I need a mover and a seconder to move to a closed meeting. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Fraz. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Let's take, well, 5 or 7 minutes.